There was once a young woman named Ada who came to Lagos with a small bag and a big hope. She packed a few clothes, a small sewing kit, and a heart full of dreams, and she took a bus to the city they called Lagos, the city that never slept. Lagos was loud. The roads moved like rivers of metal, and the tall buildings stood like ships. Ada found a small room in a house full of other people who had come from many places. Some days she earned enough to send a little money home. Some days she ate only bread. She learned quickly that the city was a good teacher, but a hard one. One evening, while she was stitching a dress under the yellow light of a roadside lamp, she met a man named Mr. Adewale. He was a businessman who wore soft suits and drove a car that shone like the river under the sun. He noticed Ada's hands working the needle and watched how she folded the cloth. He asked her story. He listened. He called the next day to ask if she could mend his shirt. He sent the driver to fetch her, and she went, nervous and small, in the big car. Mr. Adewale was different from all the men Ada had known in the city. He spoke gently and remembered the names of the people who worked for him. He was kind to the old gatekeeper, and he laughed like someone who had learned the sweet parts of life. Ada felt safe when she was near him. People said he was lonely, but his eyes were full of good things. Before long, Mr. Adewale began to visit the small house where Ada lived. He brought fruits and small gifts. He listened to her stories about the river town and about her little sister who liked to sing. The housemates whispered. Ada was careful at first, but his kind words opened a window in her heart. Yet Ada carried a worry that did not leave. Her family in the town needed money for a new roof and for her mother to see a doctor. Ada loved Mr. Adewale, not with the deep knowledge of years, but with the gratefulness of a young woman who had found shelter after a storm. She feared she might lose him if she moved slowly. Sometimes the city made her heart race so fast that she could not breathe. One night, when the lights of Lagos looked like a field of candles, Ada made a choice she would later call the worst and the bravest thing she had ever done. She told a small lie. She told herself it was only a small step toward a good end. She told a story that was not true. She told Mr. Adewale she was with child. She sat before him and whispered the words, and she watched his face change. He reached for her hand, surprised and then joyful. He talked of care and of a family, of a child who would carry their name. Mr. Adewale promised to stand by her. He asked her to move into his home. He wanted to marry her. He said the words she had hoped to hear for months. Ada believed that the lie would be the seed of a new life. With his money, she thought, she could repair the roof at home, buy medicines, and set her sister to school. She told herself that once the roof was fixed, once her family was safe, she could tell the truth. She thought he would understand. She thought that love would be patient and kind, and that truth could come later. So she accepted his wedding ring with hands that shook, and the city whispered, "Congratulations." The wedding was bright. Ada walked barefoot for a moment before the bride's gown and thought of the small river town. She wore a smile large enough to hide the small knot of guilt in her chest. After the wedding, she moved into Mr. Adewale's house. The rooms were large and the windows looked out over the busy city. There were servants who made the bed and cooks who prepared meals, and there was always hot water. For the first time since she had left her town, Ada felt a soft peace. At first, the lie seemed small and harmless. Mr. Adewale bought the roof for Ada's family and paid for the doctor. He built a small garden near the house where the children from the neighborhood could learn. Ada watched the good things happen and felt a rush of relief, as if waves were pulling the stones of worry away. Still, every time Mr. Adewale spoke of the child, the knot in her chest tightened. He would touch her hand and say, "Our baby will bring us joy." She would press her fingers into his and smile, and then go to her room and cry. The lie lived inside her like a small, trembling bird. Months passed, and a truth that Ada could not stop met her one evening. Her body did not change. The months did not bring the small movements that Mr. Adewale expected. He asked about the baby gently. Ada's heart knocked with fear. How would she say she had lied? How could she look at the man who had given so much and tell him that she had asked for his hand with false words? Finally, one evening, when the rain wrote soft songs on the window, Ada took her small sewing bag and sat on the edge of their bed. She told Mr. Adewale everything. She told him of the roof and the doctor and the debt that had a voice in her ear. She told him how fear had pushed her into words she did not own. She told him of the nights of shame and of the small hope that had burned in her chest. When she finished, silence filled the room like a heavy cloth. Mr. Adewale did not shout. He did not leave. He looked at Ada with a face that had many lines of surprise and hurt, but also with a careful calmness. He drew a breath and said, "Ada, you should have trusted me with the truth." That is the first thing. His voice was soft, not angry. "That you thought hiding it would save you. I understand fear, but lies grow like weeds and take a garden." Ada expected him to speak words that would break her like dry twigs. But instead he asked, "Why did you not tell me sooner?" It took many weeks for the truth to find a new place in their home. Mr. Adewale told his close friend and a small circle of family. They came and spoke quietly, and some were angry that Ada had lied. Some were softer and said that the city makes people do desperate things. But in the house, where the truth had been placed like a lamp, something else happened too. Mr. Adewale began to talk to Ada each morning. He asked her how she was, what her thoughts were, and what she wanted for herself and for her family. Ada worked hard to rebuild trust. She found ways to show what she meant. She started a small sewing project in the house and hired young girls from the neighborhood, teaching them how to cut and stitch. She went to the market with the sellers and learned their stories. She brought the children from the neighborhood into the garden to learn how to plant seeds and to read simple books. These actions were not grand, but they were steady. For the first time, Ada was not only given shelter, she made a shelter for others. The days changed the way people spoke about Ada. Some of the people who were angry saw that Ada kept her promises. She sent the money to her family and wrote home with honest words. She returned to her village many times with Mr. Adewale by her side. He met her mother and father and listened as they told of the red roofs and the small ways they had survived. Time, with its quiet patience, pulled at the knot in Ada's chest and loosened it. She learned that truth was not a single breath, but a practice each day. The habit of showing her inner self with hands that worked and words that matched. Mr. Adewale learned that love is not only a gift to be given, but also a promise to be kept and worked on. He had wanted a child, and he still wanted a family, but he also wanted a home that rested on truth. One evening, when the moon was like a silver coin and the city hummed with small lights, Mr. Adewale took Ada's hands. He did not speak of the lie and the hurt that had been. He spoke instead of the things they had done together. "Ada, He said, "Forgiveness is something I give when I see work that comes from the heart. You lied from fear, but you have been brave in truth. That is not the same." But it is something. He looked at her and smiled with the warmth of someone who had chosen to stay. "If you will build with me with honesty, I will stand with you." She laughed in the market, and she walked with her father and Mr. Adewale to the small school where children learned under the mango tree. The village told the story of the woman who had come to Lagos and had made a home that was honest and kind. They told it not to shame, but to teach. Years passed. Ada and Mr. Adewale never did have a child by the usual way, but their home was full of children who came to learn, to play, and to sit by the fire. Ada and Mr. Adewale taught them to plant seeds and to stitch, to read simple words, and to speak the truth. When people asked about the beginning, about the small lie that had started it, Ada would hold her hand over her heart and say, "I made a mistake from fear. I learned better," Mr. Adewale would add, "and I learned to listen before I judge." The story of Ada became a story of second chances. It taught the village and the city that people can change when they are given space to do so. It taught that fear can make us choose badly, but the work of honesty and service can bring light back in. Ada's mother's roof lasted for many seasons. Her father's wheelwork found new customers. The girls who had learned to sew from Ada found work and dignity. The garden fed small families and taught children how to care for earth and each other. And so the moral is this: a lie can bring quick shelter, but it will never be a true home. If you must ask for help, ask with your truth. If you have made a mistake, do not hide. Instead, do the small, steady work that shows your heart. Love grows not from sudden promises, but from hands that keep their word every day. In Lagos, where the lights change and the road is long, Ada found that honesty and kindness made her life real and warm. If you listen now and remember only one thing, let it be this: truth opens a small door. Kindness builds the house behind.